Hello everyone, I'm the Saxy Gamer. Today we're here for yet another Civilization 6 city-state guide, where today we're going to be taking a look at the militaristic city-states. So to start off, we're going to be looking at the Envoy effects from these city-states, and much like with the other types, there's going to be a difference in the effects from the base game and the expansions, so we are going to cover both just because I know some of you are not playing in the expansions. Also, like the other types, you are going to get these effects at 1, 3, and 6 envoys. So at 1 envoy, in both the base game and the expansions, you are going to receive +2 production in the capital when producing units. And I'm not going to write it on the screen here, and I'm not really going to mention it for the rest of the effects, but for all of these production bonuses, they are going to be only when producing units in cities. So, +2 production in the capital when producing units is actually quite valuable, especially from that one early value envoy. If you can get that from first meeting a militaristic city-state, this can be really nice because keep in mind that units also cover things like settlers, builders, and scouts. It's not just military units, so early on in the game when you generally want to just be spamming out a lot of settlers and, scouting out a lot of land with a lot of scouts, getting +2 production can be really helpful, and it can speed that up quite a bit. The other nice thing is that if you want to go early aggression or if you need to defend yourself, then you can use that extra production in the capital to spam on a few military units as well. So I think that the 1 envoy in a militaristic city-state is actually a pretty value pickup early on in the game, and I would definitely advise you to at least consider putting an envoy into a militaristic city-state early on. At 3 envoys, you're going to receive +2 production in every encampment district in the base game, and for the expansions, this 2 production is just going to shift into a barracks or a stable. So this additional 2 production, I think, is a lot less value than the 1 envoy that you would get from, the first envoy that you put in. And mainly the reason for this is just because +2 production at the point, is it really worth 2 additional envoys when you could be putting those 2 envoys in something like a scientific or cultural city-state? And the issue with this is that with science or culture, whenever you get that science in libraries and amphitheaters, it adds up across your empire. So you could get, say, 30 science across your empire if you have, 3 or 6 envoys in a scientific city-state. But the thing with militaristic city-states is the maximum bonus that you're going to get from 3 envoys is you're going to feel +2 production in the cities that have encampment districts or barracks or stables. So it doesn't matter how many encampment districts you have or how many barracks or stables you have, the maximum bonus that you're going to feel in a city is only +2 production. So I don't generally tend to think that that's really worth 3 envoys, and the 6 envoy bonus, as I've kind of talked about already, is just that you receive an additional +2 production in every encampment district in the base game, or +2 production in every city with an armory in the expansions. And once again, this kind of follows the same thing that it's not strictly speaking a terrible bonus, but because the production doesn't add up across your empire, the maximum bonus that you're going to feel in a city is only +4 production, which compare that to, say, plus 30 science if you had put 6 envoys into a scientific city-state, and the effect that you feel is really just not quite as valuable. So I would generally avoid putting 3 or 6 envoys into militaristic city-states unless you either A, really need that production and you really feel like you need it in your cities, or B, you really want to get the suzerain bonuses for the city-states, which we will talk about right now. So the first 2 city-states that we are going to cover are Akkad and Granada. So Akkad makes it so that your melee and anti-cav units do full damage to city walls, and what this actually means is that it makes them function as though they have a battering ram on them, like on the same tile or in effect on the city. And this actually can be quite good because it can make it so that you can siege without needing to build actual siege units. This has gotten increasingly good just because of the fact that battering rams have now been nerfed to the point where they only affect ancient walls and siege towers only affect medieval walls. So being able to get the old effects from the battering ram on walls now is actually pretty decent. So if you're going for a domination victory, I think that the bonus from Akkad is definitely something that you want to consider, especially if you're lazy like me and you don't really like to build siege units. From Granada, you can get the Alcazar unique tile improvement, and the Alcazar effectively functions as a fort, so it provides +4 combat strength to an occupying unit. It also provides +2 culture, and it will provide science equal to 50% of the tile's appeal. So Granada, I think, with the Alcazar is actually a decent tile improvement. It's not really that great for domination victory, strictly speaking, because it's a lot more of a defensive tile improvement than an offensive one, so it's not really going to help you take over other civilizations. But the additional 2 culture can be nice because it can make it so that you can keep up in culture a little bit better without having to build districts, so you can keep producing units in your cities. And same thing goes with science. It just gives you a little bit of extra science, possibly if you have good tile appeal. That can make it so that you can keep up in those yield types without having to go out of your way. That being said, though, I don't find myself, generally using the Alcazar all that often, and I, a lot of the times, will still consider just taking over Granada. The next 2 city-states that we are going to talk about are Kabul and Ngazargamu, which was formerly known as Carthage. Also, it has one of the most difficult to pronounce names that I think is in the game. So Kabul will make it so that your units receive double experience from battles they initiate. I think that Kabul is an outstanding city-state because getting double XP from, maybe they're handing out doing Doritos or something like that, but getting double XP on your units is really nice because it makes it so that you can get, bonuses to movement, bonuses to combat strength, and it's going to make it so that as you get those level ups faster, that's going to mean that you're able to heal your units, because keep in mind you receive 50 HP every single time you give a unit a promotion. So being able to get those upgrades faster is going to make your units stronger, and it's going to make them less likely to die because you're going to be getting those HP boosts every time you promote. So Kabul, if you're going domination victory, I think is a fantastic city-state. Ngazargamu is one that will provide it'll make it so that your land units are 20% cheaper to purchase with gold per encampment building in the city. So this, I think, is actually quite strong. I'm not sure, honestly, how often I've actually utilized it, but making it so that if you have a fully kitted encampment district in the city, you're going to have a 60% discount on purchasing units with gold, which can be really helpful if you need to suddenly either, buy up a bunch of military units, or if you just want to keep building up your army. Being able to purchase units for 60% cheaper is really nice. This can also work out defensively as well, because, maybe you don't want to have a standing army so you can keep your gold per turn pretty high, but then suddenly somebody attacks you, you can just go ahead and purchase a bunch of military units and defend off the, the invasion. So Ngazargamu, I think, is also a pretty good city-state. One thing I should mention is that if you're in the base game, then Carthage will make it so that your encampment districts provide +1 trade route. I don't think that this is anywhere near as good as Ngazargamu's bonus, so if you're in the base game, I would kind of stay away from Carthage and don't really care. But I believe that Carthage gains this same ability in Rise and Fall if you have that. Next up, and we have Preslav and Valletta. So Preslav makes it so that you receive +2 loyalty in each encampment building in a city. I think that this is pretty bad. Generally, if you're going to be conquering cities, I mean, if they have already built up encampment districts in them, then that can be okay, but even so, getting +6 loyalty in a city, it's going to be helpful in some situations, but a lot of the times, if you're really going to be pressed for loyalty, you're probably going to be a lot more negative than just -6, because if you're at -6, then you can solve that issue by just putting a governor in the city, since governors provide +8, so being able to get +6 for an encampment building is not that great, especially since if you take over a city that doesn't have an encampment district in it already, it's going to take you way too long to build up the district to the point where that loyalty actually matters. I should note that Preslav did have an old ability in which cavalry receive +5 strength when fighting on hills. Now that ability is actually pretty good because cavalry units are pretty strong, so getting them additional strength when you're fighting on hills makes them even a little bit better. So if you're in the base game and you have that ability, then Preslav is pretty good, but otherwise if you're in Rise and Fall or Gathering Storm, I think that Preslav is kinda bad. And last up we have Valletta, which makes it so that city center and encampment buildings can be bought with faith. Also, walls are cheaper to purchase with faith, but can only be purchased with faith, so you have no option to build them at all with production. So Valletta, I think, is situationally kind of okay. Obviously, if you're going for a religious victory and you're going to have a lot of faith per turn, then this can be good because it can allow you to purchase those buildings pretty fast if you have a lot of faith per turn, and it maybe can even make it so that you can get those walls up very nicely, which is something that is quite valuable because there have been a lot of situations where I really wish that I had walls in a city because I was suddenly attacked but didn't have enough time to get walls up, so being able to purchase them with faith can actually be pretty strong. I mean, obviously the downside of not being able to produce them is a little bit bad, so Faith is a little bit of a mixed bag, and in certain situations I think it can be good, but more often than not I find myself not utilizing it. So as we've done in the other videos, let's go ahead and talk about which city-states I generally like to keep in a game and which city-states I generally like to kill, and obviously which ones it depends. So for the ones that I pretty much always keep, I pretty much always keep Kabul, and I pretty much always keep Gaza, because both of those, I think, for domination victory provide you with a lot of value that is, you know, honestly unparalleled by the other city-states, because the bonuses that these guys give can make a huge impact on your domination game, and it can make it just a lot easier. And with Ngazargamu being able to purchase units very cheaply can make it, you know, an effective city-state even if you're not going for domination victory, because this can be very helpful for defense. For the city-states that I pretty much always kill Preslav, just because I generally find that just getting the land from having an additional city is pretty much always more valuable than getting +2 loyalty for each encampment district building. So for that reason, I think that, as I've kind of already talked about already, that extra loyalty is very seldom actually useful, and I think Preslav is a pretty bad city-state. The other three, it really depends on the situation as to whether or not I keep them or kill them, because I think that they definitely do have situations in which they are good, but just, you know, not always quite as black and white as with the ones that I pretty much always keep or always kill. Also, I'm going to give some rankings to these city-states, so once again, as I've mentioned in the previous episodes of this series, these rankings are not, you know, so much strictly 100% correct, because there is a lot of situationality that is involved with the city-states and how good they are. Also, I know that situationality is not a word, but it's fine. So take this list with a grain of salt, but generally the city-states that I find to be more effective and less effective would follow this list right here. So, you know, do with this list as you would, as you want, but it's not 100% set in stone, and it's just kind of a lot of based on my personal opinion and my play style as well. So thank you everyone for watching. I have been the Saxy Gamer. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to like. If not, feel free to dislike. If you're looking for some more Civilization 6 content, feel free to subscribe. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.